I've compiled 100 digital art tips and tricks for Procreate and put them all in this video. Some you might know already, but it doesn't matter if you are a Procreate beginner or pro. I'm sure there are tips in here that you didn't know of or that you forgot about. Hold your pen in place to draw a straight line, or tap one finger on the screen to make it perfectly horizontal or at a perfect angle. Hold your pen in place to draw a perfect shape. In case of a circle, tap one finger on the screen to turn it into a perfectly round circle. Tap with two fingers on the screen to undo anything, or hold them on the screen to do multiple undos. Tap three fingers on your screen to redo any stroke, or hold them on your screen to redo a lot of strokes. Tap and hold your color circle to switch back to your previous color. Drag your colored circle into a shape to fill it, getting a weird white edge when you fill a shape. Then adjust the color drop threshold by dragging your pen to the left or right. You can detach your color menu by tapping and holding this area. Create a color palette from any picture by dragging it into the color palettes area like this. Merge layers together by pinching them like this. If you want to select a single layer, just tap and hold the checkbox here. If you want to keep a layer safe from you painting on it, then slide to the left and tap lock. Now you can't paint on this layer anymore. Procreate saves automatically. So don't worry, when turning off the app, your work will be there when you get back. Do be careful not to close the app after you have made a mistake, because when you get back, you won't be able to undo it. You can sort of save your work by duplicating your entire project or by duplicating layers. That way you can always go back to a previous stage of your painting or drawing. To select multiple layers in your project, just slide to the right on each layer. This way you can select multiple layers and group them to stay organized. When you have selected multiple layers, you can't paint on them, but you can use liquify, for example, liquifying multiple layers at the same time. If you have turned on the scribble feature on your iPad, you can easily rename your layers by just writing on them. If you have been painting with a brush and you want to use that same brush to erase or smudge, simply tap and hold the eraser or the smudge tool to switch to that brush. Tap a layer and turn on alpha lock so you are only able to paint on the shape that is already on that layer. You can also turn on alpha lock by sliding to the right with two fingers. If you want to lower the opacity of your layer, just tap the end and use the slider. But you can also change the opacity by tapping with two fingers on your layer and then using the slider like this. If you want to duplicate multiple layers, simply select them all and then drag them onto your canvas. If you want to color your line art, make sure you make a layer underneath your line art layer. Then set your line art layer to reference to be able to fill the shapes on the layer that's underneath. To make filling shapes even easier, tap continue filling at the top to be able to tap different areas to fill them. You can also drag colors straight from your color palette. Just tap and hold it for a little bit and then drag the colors onto your canvas. There's an option to save the brush size or opacity in these sliders. Just tap the little slider and then tap the plus to save the size or opacity of your brush. That way you can easily go back to your preferred brush size. Do you feel like the slider is going way too fast? Just drag a little bit to the right to make your slider go slower. Do you prefer to have your brush setting sliders in a different place? Just drag it out with two fingers and move it around. By turning on dynamic brush scaling, your brush will remain the same size even if you zoom in or out on your canvas. But if you turn it off and you zoom in on your canvas, your brush will appear to be smaller. If you are left-handed, you might want to switch your brush interface from left to right. You can do that by turning this on. Don't like the darkness? Then just turn on light interface here. If you want to use a color that you have previously used, just tap this little rounded square and then go over your canvas to find the color that you need. You can do the same thing by tapping and holding your finger on the screen. If you don't want to keep navigating to the brushes you've been using, just go to the top of your brush library to recent brushes to find the brushes that you have been using. If there is a favorite brush of yours in that recent brush area, just slide to the left and pin it. That way it won't disappear from the recent brushes area. If you are curious what brush set the brush belongs to, then just slide to the left and use the find option. That way Procreate will bring you to the brush set the brush belongs to. To easily select whatever is on a layer, tap and hold 2 fingers on your layer. Once you have a selection, you can only paint or erase inside of that selection. You see those diagonal lines around your selection? You can make them more or less visible by using this slider over here. When you swipe on your screen with 3 fingers, you will erase everything that's on the current layer. Pinch with your fingers to let your artwork fill the entire screen. When you tap on your screen with 4 fingers, you will get a full view of your artwork without the menu and sliders. When you slide down with 3 fingers, you will get this little menu and you can duplicate whatever is on a layer. To create smoother lines in Procreate, just go to the brush settings, then go to stabilization and turn up the streamline and stabilization amount. That way you will get smoother lines. Flip your canvas every once in a while to check for mistakes. When you use the freehand selection, you can simply tap in different areas to make straight lines. You can use the selections to fill entire areas by turning on color fill. When you have your selection set to automatic, you can slide to the left or right to adjust the automatic selection threshold. That way you can select more or less colors in a range. When you use any of these adjustments, you need to slide your finger or your pen to the right to turn them up. To preview any of the adjustments you have made, you can tap with your finger on the screen and then hold this preview button. When you use any of the adjustments like Gaussian blur for instance, you can choose to blur either the entire layer or pick the pencil option. That way you can paint the areas you want to blur and then use your finger to make the blur stronger or less strong. When you use motion blur, the direction in which you slide is also the direction in which you blur. Whenever you paint something, Procreate makes a screen recording for you. You can go here to watch it. To be able to trace an image, simply import a photo into Procreate, then go to the layer menu and lower the opacity of the photo layer and make a new layer on top to start tracing. You can also do some secret tracing by sliding to the left here and insert a private photo. When you use a photo set to private like this, it won't show up in the screen recording. If you want to create interesting color combinations, go to your color menu and then to harmony. When you tap in this area, you can pick different options and you can simply move these around to find the combination that you like. You can double tap in these areas of the color wheel to grab pure black, pure white, and the purest color for instance. You can pinch out or pinch in to get rid of the outer circle. You can go to canvas information here to check your canvas stats and see how long you have been working on your painting or how many strokes you have created. Follow Art with Flow tutorials to learn how to use all of these features in Procreate while you create an awesome artwork. To turn on symmetry in Procreate and be able to draw on both sides at the same time, you need to turn on your drawing guide and then go to Edit Drawing Guide and turn on symmetry. That way, whatever you paint on one side, it'll also show up on the other side. You can see on the layer that it has Drawing Assist turned on. Once you turn that off by tapping it, you won't be able to use symmetry anymore. This also works for other grids like the 2D grid. Once you have Assisted Drawing turned on, your lines will only follow the grid. To turn on the Quick menu, you need to go to Gesture Controls, then tap Quick menu and set it to this setting for example. Then tap Done, and then when you hold the little square and tap on the screen with your pen, you will open the Quick menu. And then you can tap and hold any of these buttons and set them to your favorite actions. For instance, you can use the Quick menu to recolor anything on your painting. You can simply use this crosshair to move to the area you would like to recolor and then pick the color that you like. And you can use the flood option here at the bottom to select a wider range of colors. Is there a mark on your artwork and you don't know on which layer it is? Then go to Gesture Controls, then to Layer Select and set it to Touch. Then whenever you touch on a mark, it'll automatically select the layer it is on. And then you can erase it. You can easily copy layers to another project. Just tap and hold them, then go to the gallery and navigate to the artwork you want to drop it in. Open the layer menu and drop the layer. You can turn on a reference panel in Procreate. You can either use it to have a miniature version of your artwork while you zoom in or out, or you can add a reference photo there. To use the reference photo, you can also use split screen. Just drag your finger up from the bottom of your iPad and then drag your photo app to one of the sides of your screen. To have a photo open in a secondary window. The brushes that are already in Procreate are great, but you can get a lot more free brushes by going to freefromflow.com. Learn about color theory, for example with my free ebook that you can also find through freefromflow.com. Don't use pure black for your shadows, but try using a warm or a cool color instead. To use the clone tool, what you need to do is first mark the area you want to clone, then grab a brush, and then paint in another area to clone whatever you want to clone. If you are really getting a Procreate addiction, then you might want to join Patreon, where you can find a whole lot of tutorials ranging from beginner level to more advanced levels. There's a difference between the freeform and the uniform transform tools. If you use freeform, this is what happens. If you don't want to mess up the ratio, then set it to uniform instead. When you have the transform set to freeform and you hold one of these anchor points, it'll automatically switch to distort. When you turn on snapping here, it's easy to find the center of your canvas by dragging and looking for those vertical and horizontal orange lines. To resize the object, you can use different anchor points. You can have the anchor points on the sides like this, or you can have the anchor point in the center by resizing from the center outward. You can tap these anchor points when using warp to move these anchor points to the front or the back, and this will change the way your object folds, for instance. You can also switch to advanced mesh. This will give you more control over your warping. If you want to move your objects around with tiny steps, then you can simply tap on the outside of the object to make it move with tiny increments. To create an outline text, simply create a text in Procreate and then tap this button over here to turn it into an outline text, which you can easily fill with color. You can create a digital sketchbook by using Page Assist in Procreate. Simply turn it on and then you can create a new page for each page of your sketchbook. When you are creating a sketch, you don't need to make a perfect sketch right away. You can start out with a messy sketch, lower the opacity of that, and then make a new layer on top. You can repeat this process multiple times until you get a sketch that you are happy with. You can clean up your line art by going to liquify and setting it to edge. That way you can make your lines nice and thin just by going over them. To save an image with a transparent background, turn off your background color layer and then export it as a PNG. You can adjust or rename your custom canvases simply by dragging to the left on your custom canvas. That way you can change the size or give it a new name. To be able to draw in perspective, you can turn on a drawing guide and then set it to perspective. With one tap you can create a vanishing point, and with another tap you can create another one. And when you turn on assisted drawing, all your lines will follow your perspective grid. Create your own signature brush. On a square canvas on a white layer, create your signature with black. Then drag down with 3 fingers and use copy. Then create a new brush by tapping the plus, go to shape, tap the shape source, go to import and use paste. Then tap with 2 fingers to invert it, tap done. You can turn up the spacing under stroke and then you have your own signature stamp brush. When you are creating a pretty dark artwork, it might be hard to see your sketch layer on top of the other. Simply tap the layer and then tap invert to turn your sketch into a light sketch. You can use any of your layers to turn them into a new project with the same dimensions as your layer. Simply tap and hold the layer, then tap gallery, and then go to the plus. Procreate will automatically create a project with just that layer. In your gallery, you can keep things organized by creating groups. Drag and hold a project, tap to select other projects, and then hold them on top of each other to turn them into a stack. When you are in your gallery, you can preview your artworks by pinching out, and then you can slide to browse through your artworks. To make your stacks, your groups of artworks, look even better, you can give them a cover image. That's simply just the first artwork in your stack. This can make it easier to navigate in your Procreate gallery. Do you remember those great example artworks when you first installed Procreate? If you want them back, just tap Procreate here and then pick Restore Example Artworks. Final tip, go to the wrench, then to help, and then to the Procreate handbook. It has all the information you need that hasn't been covered in these 100 tips.